Angel of war, I send my trial and crazy the war with soldiers. Our hearts are full of as are your notice.
You know my work,
The Horse Parade. Tonight we mark 75 years since VJ Day, the day on which the nation could finally celebrate the end of the Second World War. Japan had surrendered to the Allied forces in the most destructive conflict in history.
Yabancı söyleme lazım.
Thankfully, there are still people left to tell us this story firsthand. Though the pandemic has prevented our veterans joining us this evening, we've captured their voices on film from a safe distance for this commemoration. We will share their memories with you and pay tribute to all those who took a role in the war. These veterans we refer to as the forgotten. This evening is for you. We salute you. We remember. To begin our tribute, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Cambridge.
75 years ago today, my great-grandfather, King George VI, addressed the nation the most catastrophic conflict in mankind's history came to an end. Japan surrendered. As he marked the moment the world has long prayed for, he enjoyed all those who fought alongside us. It's hard for us to imagine what victory over Japan Day must have felt like at the time. A mix of happiness, jubilation, and sheer relief, together with a deep sadness and overwhelming sense of loss for those who would never return home. Today, we remember those who endured terrible suffering and honour all those who lost their lives. Like many of you, I have huge pride in the wartime generation. My grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh, fought on the battlefield. His ship, HMS Well, present in Tokyo Bay, surrendered to fire. He remembers vividly his role in protecting the prisons of war. At times, surely only to him, the war was fighting. We all remember his story. We often recite the Hime Expo. Words that are carved are a memorial to the second British division, a memory of their actions during one of the key battles in the Burma campaign. When you go home, tell them about it and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. As we look back, we must not forget our responsibility to learn the lessons of the past and ensure that the horrors of the Second World War are never repeated. We owe that to our veterans, to their families, and to the generations who will come after us. As we mark the 75th anniversary of the victory over Japan Day, to each and every one of you who contributed to the effort, I say thank you. Our country owes you a debt of gratitude. Your bravery and the sacrifices you made will never be forgotten.
What? That's what I'm thinking of.
I think that many people who celebrated the day after think that that was the end of the war, but it was not the end of World War II. World War II was still continuing. We were still fighting the Japanese until VJ 75 years ago. Well, it was forgotten because of
Declining war, we don't want to war. They're only one.
Going on.
I'll just do war to war where.
From fighting in the because when the Japan
Damn it, you take this for that, they had to do that. This is the big cook mommy, so we eat you. When?
the ground was just sitting water.
Mister? No, mister. You choose to be mister. Some choose to be doctor. Some choose to be sir. Some choose to be monsieur. Some choose to be lecturer. What's the table?
This was
Now hold your hand.
Daisy,
Why not?
your hand in the Japanese, they were a place of man. No mercy whatsoever.
They make cartoons on the toilet and do them.
You have been in place.
It's no right.
Value if you have been captive.
Very much.
One treated
How about you?
person of war so badly.
Describe me war. I don't know. Ching ching. Body kilo took. Took me to talk now. Just these took me when I could talk now.
These men are even lives up. That's so. That's good to try and
Kitne go to. Table is down now. The Queen. The Queen is lipstick.
Return of her beautiful performance.
Oh
With a huge hit to grace the king.
The Queen be like, I'm not gonna let you go because we too.
Their homelands to fight. This distance meant that he, their families had little knowledge about the conflict their loved ones were fighting. Many people had no idea about what they experienced, a legacy that continues to this day. For many veterans, it has taken decades to speak about their experiences in the Far East. Some have shared their memories with their families, and others chose to stay silent. We spoke to people who've discovered a family link to this war.
Well, this is Dad, my mum and me, and shortly before Dad went off to the Second World War, it was the last time we saw each other until he was shipped off to the Far East, Japanese.
Yeah, attached to the second bark ship. I'm very proud.
Referred, went through a lot. The Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces called a press conference to highlight the conflict.
Why are you invoking war?
Is a single, united front. Please, therefore, look upon Burma as one big Allied effort, which is going extraordinarily well. We do not want a lot of limelight. In fact, we do not want any. But I go round and talk to the men in the command and what worries them. That
You sure you're not reading
their
it?
mothers, their daughters, their sweethearts, and their sisters don't seem to know that the war they are fighting is important and worthwhile, which it most assuredly is. The Southeast Asia Command is a long way off.
The defense, right
It's
order.
actually overshadowed in Europe by the climax of the war against
Usually in an order.
in the Pacific. Therefore, a major effort by Allied forces doing their duty in inhospitable places has been somewhat crowded out,
The curve
and the forces have not
one by one.
received their proportion of credit.
For me.
I am proud of the gallant fighting which has taken place on all fronts, and I hope that my statement may make the people who read it proud of the achievements of their own countrymen and grateful to their allies who helped them in these achievements.
Japan was already at war with China when in September 1940 they joined Germany and Italy in a pact against the Allies. The war was then raging in Europe, but a tentative peace existed across Southeast Asia. Britain had troops stationed across its colonies, but didn't consider an attack from Japan to be a real threat. In 1941, Japan's desire to expand its own empire turned World War II into a truly global conflict. Inspired by the Nazis conquered much of Europe, the Japanese had They already occupied a large part of the Chinese mainland, including Peking and Shanghai, but they had their sights set on a much bigger prize. In early December 1941, the Japanese armed forces launched a series of surprise attacks. They bombed the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor and a number of other military bases across the region. As a result of the assault gathered pace, they invaded Hong Kong, Malaya, the Philippines, and Borneo. In a masterpiece of organization, the Japanese simultaneously attacked by land, sea, and air. It was an audacious offensive against an unprepared enemy, and it proved hugely successful.
And the only survivor was see all them
On Christmas Day 1941, the British surrendered Hong Kong.
home office hang somebody on
As the Japanese Air Force made its first attack on Burma, their army cut through the dense jungle of the Malay, pushing British and Commonwealth troops back to
just in case. Back to the field.
bombs pummeled the island, and supplies ran low. Singapore, a critical naval base for British aircraft, proved vulnerable to a land attack. and against the
Yeah.
siege and aggression of the Japanese, its defenses failed.
I speak to you all under the shadow of a heavy and far-reaching military defeat. Singapore has fallen. Let us move forward steadfastly together into the storm and through the storm.
My grandfather, Subedar Major Nishapat Singh Grewal, served in the Signals Corps, British Indian Army. He was awarded the Burma Star Medal for service in the war in the Far East. This piece is from the writing of Ben Bain, 1st Battalion, the Kingfisher Regiment, who fought in Singapore.
फोर्ट में से
And according to
सिंगापुर
Tree,
तमाम
I
हो
dismiss
जाएगा
what I hope will remain as the greatest shock of my life. As the messenger came with the order to lay our weapons down
सिंह की
in
घाट
Singapore and
खूब है ना
I find it quite impossible to describe my feelings.
या फिर
Until now, we had
झांक
felt
में
that we
बना
were holding our own and anticipated pushing the Japanese
भूल नहीं
back
दे
off the
बताना
island before many more days had passed.
हाँ
Our wildest guesses
Our
did not
wildest
take into account the
didn't
possibility
trouble in the
of
world,
abandoning the territory to the enemy.
due to
We had been
the
told
wind
that the island must be
Turkey had
retained
been
at
told
all costs.
properly, no?
In any case, we did
In
not
every
think of
case,
throwing in the sun
deporting
or
would
any
not
of
be
us remained
an
alive. That was
Yes.
not the British way. I was unable to grapple with the situation.
whichever way.
As
That's
we
how I
awaited
feel
the next
anyway.
move, our thoughts dwelt on what we had heard of the way the Japanese dealt with prisoners. We did not discuss
Japanese
these
were
things as
criminals.
we waited in
They
silence.
destroyed my island by
Each captain
invading
thought to
and
himself.
betraying. Yes, it is. What is it?
The swift advance of the Japanese and the surrender of troops in Singapore saw the British Army at one of its lowest points in World War II. The defeat was the beginning of appalling treatment for thousands of Commonwealth prisoners of war who were caught in the fighting. When British territory fell, it was not just but also interned in the Far East. A brother and sister shared with us their family's story of survival.
Nobody wants to give me any sister, you know. They said, brother, they don't want to be able.
My father was in the civil service, so we lived in Hong before the war, just above Wanchai in a block of flats. It was pretty stuffy, humid in the summer. My sister was born in the middle of the typhoon in 1935.
John was my big brother. He looked after me. I don't remember very much at all before the war. My memories really start when the war started.
3 shells in the flats, 1 hit above the dining room. There were only an 18-inch hole in the ceiling. Zilla and I were cowering under the kitchen table. And the corporal who was leading the platoon of Royal Scots, he gave my father a revolver and said, "We're only 10 minutes away from a Japanese bayonet charge. I advise you to shoot your family and keep on bullet."
One by one or one?
I was 5 and a half at Christmas when Hong Kong surrendered, and about 5 3/4 when we went into camp. Life was going to be very different, and food was always an issue.
Where's anything that moved? On one occasion we caught a field mouse, and we all had a leg each.
We did find potatoes. I just left it as it was, straight off the road.
May have seen the accepted.
Another thing we learned was if the tar was melting, we put a
And
bit of the
punishment
tar,
because
Then we
severe,
got worse, and in the end we
very
got stopped
severe.
there. And some women made the mistake of pretending not to be hungry and giving their children extra. They died, but their children became orphans. Got to be quite a number. And then one day my mother tried that trick, but I felt looking at it. She wasn't going to let her give us some of her food.
That's what
I can't ever remember being told that the war was over, that everything went quiet. And the Japanese just seemed to vanish.
We'd made friends with those promotion guards, that young chap. And he told my father that the Japanese were going to execute the camp on the 25th of August. So we escaped certain death by 10 days.
J'étais maman. J'étais quel côté. Yes, you're gonna have a music radio. Like everybody.
I am Major Jeff Betts of the Adjutant General's Corps. My grandfather, Reginald Wills, was a member of the Singapore Straits Volunteer Force. He was taken prisoner of war and spent 3 years in the infamous camp building the Burma Thai Railroad. He was one of the lucky ones. Almost a quarter of those taken prisoners did not survive. The horrors he endured meant he came back a very different man to the one he once was.
Robert Frank Huxley. I was the second award engineer, and my number was 207866. At the end of October 1941, we got aboard troop ships and Liverpool, the transit got to Singapore. Now, we walked down the bank. I could see people standing on the quayside with their cases ready to leave. So I knew that things were serious. Very serious. I thought we were going to deal with defence work at Singapore. What we didn't realise is that the
Japanese Singapore
treat us so poorly
from the map.
when we became prisoner of war.
Send the Singapore.
For most of his life, my grandfather refused to discuss the atrocities that had taken place in the camp. We learned that he witnessed and received beatings and survived by eating rats and snakes. He endured the unimaginable cruelty of building the death railway, the jungle and rocks where thousands perished. Every mile of the railway claimed 400 lives.
This is very bad. We lived in these bamboo-made huts. We lived in malaria. I have a dysentery. Working on the railway, I got myself into our fall.
Are you no fucking lying?
It must have been that bad.
Are you no fucking lying?
I did that they put me in the center.
Were you a deaf kid?
They didn't think it was.
Are you no fucking lying?
A couple of people I did.
Were you come back when you had to be cool where you were?
That put me on the alert. So I got them to make me a
little cook came from
I said I was going to
Malaya Island.
The next morning when they come to empty the hut and take all the dead away, I was the one still alive.
I wonder why.
For the rest of his life, my grandfather carried with him the shadow of his war. Today, I'm sure he would have been diagnosed with PTSD. But back then, he just had to silently deal with the weight of those memories. I think all of us are the custodians of my grandfather's generation.
Freedom of grandfather.
In an increasingly divided world,
Those
principles are upheld. I decided to join the army because of my grandfather.
Why do you only have the right to choose?
The better world is worth fighting.
Who work can kill them?
I don't think
yes, you do. But
this is recognition.
it's your secret.
War in the Far East.
Your shit.
I've always thought I had an obligation, had I lived, that they should not be forgotten or anything. Yeah. And I was trying to
Long live the trees. Long live the trees. Long live the trees. Who cares more? Long live the trees. Long live the trees. Long live the trees. Who cares more?
They pushed deep behind enemy lines through dense jungle, using guerrilla tactics to break Japanese communications.
Babu.
They were a multinational
British,
Burmese,
Babu,
West African,
Babu.
American servicemen.
Let me dress for you. Babu. You don't like that.
main aim of the shindig was to disrupt the Japanese supplies and reinforcements from about 150 miles behind the enemy lines.
Seta Baneta. Deputy Gora, Gore Sarawera.
On the 5th of March 1944, which happened to be my 24th birthday, we landed.
They had been put in Hackney, very dangerous guys.
Our station glider, which caused
None of them would fly over there.
they were
Why? Sarah de Mame Purila, Hackney Moren, Go?
to get the regular dawn dusk change.
Three?
The
Cold?
attacks were severe
Hair?
and there were casualties those days.
Friday? If I did it, what? You have too much. Too much, Friday. Too much. Can't be taking a good film.
Plan then was to open another block 60 miles long that the Japanese forces eventually overran. We were going to evacuate at dawn and are passed quite a number of the wounded and a couple of them treating with me. Suddenly to help out just as possible.
Richard.
And they were shot
The cook?
at the back of the infantry.
Ah,
And we all knew that, you know.
okay.
That's what happened.
Sabur? Ki sabur? Misery take sabur bote.
It was, of course, a significant moment in our life.
Musibat? Ki moment?
Remembers above all the convention.
The conversion of what? Conversion of Akavadi.
The powerful and moving voices of Virginia. Dame Vera Lynn will be remembered by the thick of the jungle, home felt very far away. To lift their spirits, a little bit of Blighty came in a surprising form when the forces' sweetheart visited the front line. For 3 months during 1944, Vera Lynn gave concerts and sang to wounded men at their bedsides. She recalled her time in Burma in her memoir.
There I was, in the middle of the jungle, singing my heart out into a microphone. The generator helped to project my voice into the surrounding hills full of tangled unknowns. With my pianist hand, pounding a small piano in the back of the truck, I meet perspiring in the heat and humidity, and blasting the insects that seem to be buzzing all around me. At the same time, I saw the faces of the boys below me, and felt that at that moment in time, there was nowhere I would rather be than here. So close to the fight that it was possible for me to be, expressing my own gratitude for what those troops were doing out there, risking their lives every day and enduring for months, even years. Those same conditions that I had to deal with for only a short time. In that moment, I did not worry about the heat, the bugs, or the enemy soldiers who did not go very far away.
And indeed, there's an awful lot of good morally. Yes, he was there at all. I thanked her for all my heart and the time. I think it brought home that there were other people outside the Indian Army, the British Army, to care about our welfare and we were perhaps not forgotten army.
She did absolutely nothing. All the lads fell in love with her, and we all thought the world of her. She was a lovely lady, and sadly missed.
Amin.
Africans and Gurkhas.
Doesn't matter Persian or Christian or Indian or Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, we are together now. We are the drawing forces. I was 18 years old when I joined the army. It was a tradition of our family to go in the army.
The regiment I was in, which was the 146th Regiment, the Royal Armoured Corps, so we were just a little part of the 14th Army. Wherever you went, whichever unit you were in, we were all friends, we were all boys together, all part of the same activity. We were the Royal West Africa Culture Force, mostly all from West Africa. That is Nigeria, Gold Coast, and Gambia. Everybody gets on very well. We are fighting for the same cause. There was belief that no one could fight in the jungle to match the Japanese. The Japanese had already been in Ghana in the jungle for a year or two before we went.
Sometimes on that night time in one room from from night.
The veterans have a lot of nights at different places. But when we are on the ground looking for them, they will see from the hiding place and then kill you. We will be equal in terms of justification eventually. We will.
It was very important that happened. That it was a turning point when the 14th Army started to move the Japanese up.
I'm proud of the 14th Army because of the achievements.
The 14th Army was the army which kept the Japanese out of India. And they should be remembered for that.
Our thanks to Sir Bryn Terfel for that stunning performance, and to the orchestra, the household divisions, and the mass bands drawn from musicians from across all our armed forces. The 14th Army was the largest British and Commonwealth army of the Second World War, but the end of the conflict, 1.3 million servicemen and women from nearly 20 countries would have served. It was the biggest army ever assembled by Britain. Within months of its formation, in 1944 it dealt its first blow to the Japanese. Firstly in Arakan, then followed by Kohima and Imphal. Kohima would become Japan's biggest single defeat on land in World War II.
The day that the army in Europe landed on the Normandy beaches, I was on slip tracks in Kohima. The Japanese had Colombo, and from then their objective was to attack India. If they wanted to conquer India, they had to go through Kohima or Imphal. In Kohima, it was dust, really, it was just mud, ankle deep in mud. There were shell holes, abandoned slip trenches all over the village, and when we got there was the unmistakable stench of death. The detailed Lebanese was to be through.
I think Kohima in 1944, then our job was excellent to feed our supplies to our soldiers, and there was food. The region who were actually sacrificed the Japanese.
Thank you, sir.
Cut off. The pass was cut.
Only you are going
What would we do?
Don't get paranoid. You're not gonna get cut off.
Everything that could happen.
They're just gonna put you in a home.
So the food or ammunition or other things they were dropped by airplanes.
And you were running to pick them up.
We would take off with all the equipment and everything we got to drop. And we always flew with no door. I was what we call a kicker. In other words,
I was looking at their plane yesterday.
we were supplying them with ammunition, water, food, and I think actually we sent some of their mail down to them, so we were able to read letters from home. Air crew, we found us the height of the monsoon. This fog on the hills, the monsoon rain pouring down, thick, cheap jungle. How on earth they ever found us, I should never know. We thought they were absolute heroes, and that we were doing our very best to keep them going and supply them food and water. When we saw these parachutes popping down gently, having been thrust out of the aircraft, we knew that we would have ammunition, that we would have food, and that we would have the measure of the Japanese and would eventually defeat them.
From the memoir of Field Marshal William Smith, commander of the 14th Army. There comes a moment in every battle against a stubborn enemy when the result hangs in the dust. Then the general, however skillful and far-sighted he may be,
Milo,
must hand over
you're not looking after me, bro.
to the men in the ranks until their regimental
You're not allowing a man to punch you, Milo.
what he has begun.
That's totally complete against the will of the creation, man.
Their hunting, their refusal to be beaten, either by the cruel hazards of nature or by the
I will set your name that can curse you. So please, Milo, devil,
sometimes it came.
receive it, my
Sick men
tiredness and sickness of this world. Give up this world long time. My Lord, my faith is your way.
Who, in the comradeship of the 14th Army, did go on to the airmen who flew with them and saw
I'll make sure I'll bring the
belongs
15.
the true glory of achievement. Today, we turn to defeat and to victory.
50.
in the air and on land, British forces were central to the efforts at sea. The Royal Navy and the Merchant Navy made a major contribution to enabling the end of the war. Formed in late 1944, the British Pacific Fleet fought alongside the US Navy. The fleet was created to be capable of invading Japan. It was a Commonwealth force that included ships from Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. The British Pacific Fleet supported the US operations at Okinawa by targeting Japanese air activity. Naval veteran Ken Benbow served in the Atlantic, Mediterranean, and in the D-Day landings before his ship was sent to the Far East.
I served in the Navy during the war on one ship, HMS Crane, which was a wonderful ship, was a wonderful crew. In the Pacific Fleet trade, there were naval ships that the Japanese people had sworn to their emperor that they would die in the end. So anybody going to invade Japan, it was going to be very, very rough. We were just passing Okinawa, the sky, or they get invited on to get shot down before they got to the ship, and then there was people in the water. I would like people to please remember
that was alright.
for what their younger sailors now gave to save their country.
I understand you, mate. Your country is your country. Other people's country is not your country. But when you go on holiday, you obey. You obey. Oh, this drama should bring a movie for you. Anyway, single. Oh yes. Oh yes. There we go. Oh, good thing I love. Oh.
The British and Commonwealth campaign in the Far East was the longest of the war. Continuous fighting raged for nearly 4 years. To end the war, a conventional strategy of the invasion of Japan, Victory over Japan, or VJ Day, followed 75 years ago.
Much has been speculated about as to whether philosophically
or morally, it was a good thing to talk for more. To us in Burma, there was absolutely no doubt at all about it. Say, Morrison, something like
Tu demandes là? Nee, t'entends gagner? Sur la musique. Au fou qui m'a grand-père.
For the Japanese, it was a terrible thing. But I think it was the right decision because we'd have lost thousands of more of our land. And we'd had enough trouble fighting in Burma and
Les gens
Malaya
avoir la main.
and later Singapore. We were just there to do something and although I regret the thought being dropped, there isn't.
You have to justify that you succeed as a woman. And I've always felt that that is a terrific responsibility. The Japanese would have fought right to the end without it. It saved our life.
T'as pas le ténor. Tu veux pas aller finish to finish now? Khatam nahi khatam.
Never have they seen such devastation from a single bomb. If the war were gone, there'd be much more people killed on both sides. So I think the atomic bomb would be a relief to create a peace.
Et puis ça voit.
Lots of people disagree, but if you were there, it was like if you were there. It was like an enemy. You were there.
Okay, they actually they believe this.
But at the same time, I felt some doubt about the
Nobody can fight them anything even if she's not here.
She may have found out in the boat.
I am Akiko Mando. My husband is British and my father was Japanese soldier fought in Burma and under the Battle of Korea. My father told me that during the war, hundreds of bullets went past him. He was one of the lucky ones. He survived the war and lived until he was 95. 22 years ago, I was shocked to see the Japanese flag being burned on the Mall during the state visit by the Emperor and the Empress of Japan. The hate and animosity that have been part of World War II are still clear to see. In contrast, despite the death and destruction caused by the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japanese people didn't seem to hold the same hatred towards America and Britain. I could see there needed to be a bridge between Britain and Japan. For many years, I have been part of the meetings between British and
That
Japanese
song you were saying, you got this other.
The shared suffering on both sides became something that
You see why you was here?
they all felt guilty about surviving the war when so many others didn't. Those veteran faces and their voices of holding themselves will echo in my mind always. Yesterday's war is today's friend.
When you go home, make sure you stay home, and tell them over. the full weight of humanity. You know what I'm saying? For you tomorrow. Forget about what you do.
VJ Day had come. The war was over. Troops could look forward to returning home. There was jubilation across the world. When Japan signed a formal surrender document at Tokyo Bay in September 1945, it was almost 6 years to the day since Britain had declared war. The voices of those who were there will one day no longer be with us, but we must ensure that their stories, their memories, never fade. As our events to mark 75 years since the conclusion of World War II brought to an end, our final voice is from a veteran, a former sergeant in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, Arthur Rawson.
Without notice or warning, at the moment when nobody was shooting, came the order, cease firing, cease firing. The Japanese have surrendered. My immediate thought